My name is Imperial. I have 2 children in the Walt Whitman Cluster. I'd like to get back and ask a question a little bit about the budget process, since this is my first meeting, first time going through this. I understand that there's uncertainty. I understand that there is a possibility of doing academic exercises. I heard at the very beginning of this conversation how much you wanted to reach across this centerpiece and work with one another. I have a very difficult time believing that the budget process, a smart budget process, is one in which the board is waiting for a number from on high to be delivered to them, in which case they're then going to have a few days to operationalize it. I also have a difficult time believing that there is maybe more certainty of where this number is coming down from the county. So between now and when the number does come down on high, my question is, are you working on a certain set of assumptions that is dealing with various ranges of what the deficit will be, whether it's going to meet MOE or not? Are you working with one another to develop this? And how can that information be shared with us? Because at the end of the day, we're the consumers of this. And that type of budget thinking has to be going on. I have a hard time believing the people up there, as intelligent as you are not going through that exercise. So maybe you could shed a little light on that for me.
The question is, you've got 2 political bodies, both composed of very smart, hardworking, diligent people. But one's a funding body and one's not. And we send up our request to the county council. And to ask for that level of candor is also to put the school system in something of a vulnerable position as making a bid against itself. And therein lies the difficulty.
Of course, we're working on lots of things. You know, your tax dollar, we didn't get to be where we're at for your children by being naive. But the problem we have is that we are working, we have to work under the law. We cannot predict that we would lose $32 million. Okay? Because that would take away the very aid from the state of Maryland that we are deserving as a county. And trust me, we send more money down than we get back, especially out of your neck of the woods. And we can't lose that. Now, if we can't begin to contemplate what the legislature will do with this sending money back, if we lose that $32 million and we get the teacher pension, and we don't know if the teacher pension will be wealth equalized, whether it will be passed, whether it will be not passed. You could make dozens of scenarios just on those 2 issues alone. Those 2 issues alone could cost us $120 million. Now, just forget what's been said up here between the 2 bodies about the local problem. $120 million, sir, is not something you would want to operationalize in this system for your children. It isn't. And so we need to all work together right now to keep the state money. And we need to do what we need to do to keep that state money here. And we need not have any shifts back of other costs to this county at a time we have a recession. Because we could just put out scenario after scenario, and that would be just almost, as Mr. Berthiaume said, be self-defeating. You know, because it could be anybody's guess. Because we can't just play with the numbers of what the county is saying with their revenues. If they're down 4%, 4% is not going to be our biggest hit if we get the teacher pensions. If we get the teacher pensions and lose the $32 million because we don't make the state law, we've got a serious, serious problem. I suggest we all work not to do that.
Okay,
Just
2 more. Okay.
I'll be quick. While there's lots of tension on the dais relative to this issue, we are going to have to work together and figure out what that number is. And yes, we will be working together. As Dr. Lee said, those of us who were on the budget committee understand that you got to look at a lot of scenarios. But I think it is really important to understand that at the end of the day, and at the end of this process, we're going to have to figure out how to make it work for all of the county and all of the county's resources. And I wish I had a simple solution, and back to the question that came earlier in terms of how involved parents will be as we look at the end game. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, that the involvement process is really going to be starting with this conversation, then the hearings that come, then the opportunity to testify in front of, to react, if you will, to the budget that the board passes and sends forward to the county executive. And while we're doing all of that, we won't actually have clarity on what the state number is, because the legislature will not have finished their work. So we honestly will not know. So to throw out a possibility, as Ms. Berthume has said, you can ultimately work against yourself. So there is something to the process of holding and trying to really understand what the numbers are. And it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for you as a parent. It wasn't comfortable for me when I stood on that side of the dais. It's no more fun on this side, but it's part of the reality that we deal with. But as much as we fuss, and we will, and that's fine at a certain level, ultimately, we've got to work together to figure out how to keep on the trajectory of excellence that we've had for our children, because I don't think anybody's willing to give that up.
Just a question back to you. Does it bother you that we are only one of 2 counties in the state that can't meet the state law?
Oh, it absolutely bothers me. I think it bothers everybody in this room. But I also have other concerns, and that is the uncertainty. We're looking for some certainty. We're looking for some signals.
Yeah,
I understand. I don't need a dozen game scenarios.
Yeah.
But I think it's not unrealistic to think that there could be 2 or 3 most likely or highly probable, and there certainly we should be planning if you get the pension kickback and we have to do something for $100 million. We need to know that, and they need to know that. So if we know what the possibility is, they're driving to Annapolis during session and meeting with the representatives in a long line outside their door so that doesn't happen. And that's
exactly appreciate. And that's what we're all talking about tonight, is variability. We don't want that, and we want predictability.
And you need to
But you need to do
now,
that
anyway.
expecting the worst.
You need to.
Because that is the possibility. So if you want to look at a scenario, look at the worst and go and talk to your representative, your delegates, and your senators about the potential of the worst, which is passing back the pensions, not getting state aid. All of those combined with the reality of what we've got fiscally in the county, that is the worst. So we need that line in front of the delegate's door. It doesn't matter what our scenarios are. We need that line because the governor has to be pushed and our legislators have to be pushed not to pass back pensions.
Ms. Frank.
All we can do is to promise to share the information that we have as it becomes available. Last year, when the council had the budget, our projections changed 3 times after we had received a budget from the county executive. It went down. And we anticipate that more of that will happen. Assessments are done. You heard that earlier. That's part of our real problem. We have gone to every well that we have available to us. But the bigger problem, and not only is it teacher pensions, the reason we talk about teacher pensions here is because the state has a $1.6 billion problem, more or less. We don't know what that's going to mean for local government and for services, and for whether they could even fund the school system given the absence of the ARRA money. There are too many moving parts right now for anyone, anywhere, to project what the dollars are going to look like. All we can do is caution you that the numbers are going to change, and we will do our best to make that information public as we receive that information, and we'll do what we can with what we have available. We will be as public as we can about that. But the school system is at a huge disadvantage in this regard because of their requirements to come up with a budget. And the county executive, Ike's budget, is required by law, actually, to be the earliest budget in the state under our charter. And that's before the state money is resolved. So it's just a world of moving parts, very difficult to follow. And I think the one thing we can collectively commit to is making sure that that information is made available on the collective websites when it's received, so you can try to follow on.
Thank you very much, everybody. I would like to just, as a plug here, bring MCC PTA back into this. It is our job to let our elected officials know, our board members, our council members, our county executive, and the governor and the state legislators, what our priorities are for our taxpayer dollars. And the sooner we do it in these times, the better, and the more vigorously we do it in these times, the better. Now, given the level of uncertainty, our suspicion that there will be cuts, and our level of uncertainty about how much they are, we started a process last summer for identifying what parents thought were budget priorities. And again, we have our operating budget priorities